Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Premier Injuries Daily Roundup. Wow, what a weekend. And if we could add pride and heart to the injury table, and I'm sure there'd be lots of United players on that list following that defeat at Anfield. However, we shall move. We'll focus on the Monday night game first between Fulham and Brentford. There's no expected absences other than the suspension for Hapalina for the Cottage. Whereas the Bees could welcome Onyeka and Pontus Jansson back into the squad. Thomas Frank said there are no major injury concerns. Don't forget, Ivan Toney is available despite that FA suspension hanging over his head. He needs to see a disciplinary panel before they decide on the length of absence. Now, ahead of the Champions League on Tuesday, we've seen Chelsea trainer work due to hear from Graham Potter very soon. Good news is Reece James, who missed out at the weekend with a tight hamstring, has been involved with the group. Also, Christian Pulisic and N'Golo Kante. However, given the amount of time that both of those players have actually been on the bench, yes, it's great to see them training with the squad, but a return to train isn't necessarily a return to play. If they can be named on the bench, I think that's a big boost, maybe minutes before the international break. And then, all being well, if they're pushing for maybe a start at the beginning of April. On Wednesday, Tottenham, they play against AC Milan in the Champions League, their second leg tie. A little bit of a surprise to see Porro start ahead of Emerson Royale, but that was probably linked to the knee problem that kept him out of that midweek FA Cup tie. So he's only fit enough for the bench, but we could see him pushing for another start and then in the Premier League as well. But we'll move to the Premier League and we start with the early kickoff, which was Newcastle down at the Etihad. Phil Foden on fire. Unfortunately, it looks as if this ongoing aggravating foot problem has reared its ugly head again. Now, we now know that it's a loading issue, so we can be fairly confident that we're talking about plantar fasciitis. These issues relate all the way back to October, November time, missed several games, and indeed he's been managed by Pep. However, he has started games in quick succession. After his goal and the win on Saturday, Phil Foden said that he has had a problem. He's going to rest the early part of this week and see how it is towards game week 27. Now, very difficult to put any kind of timeline or time frame on these types of injuries. Like I say, it's more about managing, resting, and getting that balance between training or partial training and gameplay. So watch ahead of the game this weekend. Hopefully we may get some insight from Pep, but of course there are no guarantees for that. Newcastle, on the other hand, Bruno Guimares was past fit. This ankle issue goes all the way back to that game with Fulham, and then in most recent times, the Carabao Cup final against Manchester United. Didn't look 100% down yet. He had and went down again around about that 25th, 26th minute. He did manage to play through that, but like I say, it didn't seem to be moving freely. So again, one to watch, such as his importance and his status within that Newcastle team. Then I suggest, even if he is only 75 or 85% fit, he will be involved. Joe Linton also picked a foot problem. That was a bit of a stamp. But unfortunately, he picked up his 10th yellow card of the season. So that means he's going to be missing the next two. And Fabian Schar was absent from the matchday squad. Again, that goes back to the Carabao Cup final, took a knock. Post-match evaluations revealed a mild concussion. So he's went through the protocols and in theory, enhanced care setting protocol would have said he could have returned to play on day 6. However, given his previous episodes of head trauma and brain injury, the decision was made fairly early on in the week to take him out of the firing line. We've seen Jamal Lascelles line up alongside Botman. Personally, I probably would have went Matt Targett as a better option against Phil Foden with Dan Burn against Erling Haaland. But there you go. Elsewhere, Arsenal, Leandro Trossard was the big one. No surprise to see him pull up with a muscle problem. That's an adductor issue. He has started games again in quick succession, and this was maybe brought about by that problem with Eddie Nketiah. Now, again, he's been managing an ongoing ankle issue. He's had minutes from the bench in the last 2 games, but he was omitted from the matchday squad altogether at the weekend. So we're hopeful for game week 27 if he does indeed miss out in Europe, whereas Trossard will be sent for an MRI scan, imaging to confirm the severity of that. Elsewhere, Tariq Lamptey, he got the nod over Joel Veltman at the weekend. He started in the FA Cup on the left-hand side, but after Estupiñán was past fit, moved across to the right, Veltman on the bench. However, didn't last too long. That was a knee injury, but Roberto De Zerba doesn't think it's too serious. He referenced it as a small, minor issue, and we're hopeful for game week 27. But like I say, it could be Joel Veltman that returns to that starting 11. Boubacar Kamara, and there's a little bit of confusion with regards to his injury. Unai Emery was fairly vague. There was a follow-up update to say that it was related to a problem with a muscle around his shin. However, that looks to be a lateral ankle injury with that one, looking at the mechanism and the images that I've seen. So we'll watch, and again, probably likely that he will be sent for a scan again to determine the extent of that. Big talking point, didn't look great, was an injury to Diogo Costa, hyperextension of that knee, an awkward landing. Certainly, it looks as if there was maybe some MCL involvement. We hope no more than that. You cannot rule out the ACL. Looked in a great deal of pain being stretched off. So fingers crossed, we should expect something maybe over the next 24 to 48 hours. Wolves typically really good at providing really concise and precise updates with regards to their player injury updates. Another strange one, Carlos Alcaraz. He got the only goal of the game against Leicester at the weekend. Southampton winning 1-0 at St Mary's, but it was that goal and subsequent celebrations that brought about that knee slide. And as part of that knee slide, it almost looked as if his left leg got caught and opened up that knee of his. Now, potentially, there's maybe some MCL involvement in there and or meniscus. He did make it through to half-time. He was heavily strapped, and then he also took another knock at the beginning of that second half. Whether that exacerbated the issue or whether he just wasn't moving freely anyway. But post-match, Ruben Celas did confirm that it was the actual celebration, but he feels as if it's nothing too serious. Or certainly not long-term. We do have that international break coming up as well. So again, we'll wait probably Thursday or Friday till we hear from those press conference updates. Harvey Barnes, he was forced off at halftime during that game, came together in a challenge with James Ward-Prowse, left with an ankle sprain. Again, well, the extent is to be determined. Didn't look too great, but that comes on the back of a couple of injuries. Christensen being the main one, and that's going to spend around about 4 to possibly even up to 6 weeks on the sidelines with an ankle ligament problem. Pulled up in training on a Thursday. Initial thoughts that it wasn't too serious. Badly swollen on a Friday, sent for imaging, and we're certainly looking after the international break, hopefully early April. That follows quickly from the Yuri Tielemans ankle problem, which again is likely to keep him out maybe up until mid-April. So that's it for now. Always keep your eyes and ears peeled and follow our socials for all of the latest news and team updates. Follow all of Jason's shorts. We've got some great injury information coming up and content going out on a regular basis. You can always check out the premierinjuries.com table. And if you have any questions, you can contact us on Twitter.